Okay. And so we're going to offer what I'm calling a master class, thanks to Kim's suggestion of a better name than we had, webinar series for 2022. And it's a communication best practices for TRIO chapter leadership. The general format of what we're talking about is a webinar where the schedule is going to be 5 quarterly webinar events, each with one communications topic. The audience is meant to be your chapter leadership and yourself, and we're not limiting that in any way. So potential leadership, or you just have somebody that's interested, they'd be welcome to come attend the webinar when we get that out. And it's going to be supported by a subject matter expert presentation and discussion with a panel of chapter leaders, both those with best practices to share and those who share the challenges that they're facing. And so the first topic is a website, how to build and maintain an effective chapter website. And there's dimensions of that we think would go beyond just a presentation, some action planning to support a chapter that needs this. And this was really driven by recent realizations that there are some chapters out there that have lost their websites or don't have a website. And in a world where websites are so critical to growing membership and supporting the community, this seemed to be the most critical of all. A second topic would be the social media, how to effectively use social media to get engagement. And Marty challenged me years ago, and rightfully so, when he was on the board. He said, Jim, I'm embarrassed because our chapter, which has a great website, by the way, is also a best practice, has more followers on their Facebook than you do at the national level. And he was absolutely right at the time. I don't know how many friends he's got now, but we've done quite a bit since then, but we still haven't been effectively using social media. And so we're taking steps to correct that by bringing in a social media coordinator to help create the activity on the various platforms that we're now on: LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, of course, and Instagram. So you're going to see more of that. But this topic would be a subject matter expert and talking about how to use that social media to get better engagement. The third topic was going to be how to have an engaging call to action chapter newsletter. It's not easy to maintain a newsletter, whether you do it quarterly or monthly. I mean, e-news is the way of the day today. It used to be very hard to do a newsletter. Between the printing and mailing and the cost and so forth, it could be very expensive. At the national level, we were spending $10,000 a year on all that. And you couldn't prove that anybody was reading it, to be honest. And so replacing that with an e-newsletter has made a world of difference for organizations all over the world. And so the third topic would be how to, as a chapter, how to make an engaging something that causes action. And that's the thrust behind all this. How do we get more action out of our communication skills? A fourth meeting would be talking about leading action-based chapter meetings in the new hybrid world. It's got to be critical to run a meeting such that you respect all the members and give them a reason to come back to your next meeting. And how do you get new members coming in and in one quick meeting, getting them so engaged that they come back to the next meeting? So that would be an important fourth topic. And the final one is, how do you communicate to your community as a whole? And in doing so, grow your membership and inspire social action. Even if they don't join TRIO, can you get them to sign up as organ donors or to join a letter writing campaign for important legislation, for example? And so let me ask you for some feedback here. And I'm trying to think how to do this now that I can't see everybody. Well, I'm just going to leave these open questions, and you're going to, all right. First question I have for you is, will this help you and your chapter? Now, we don't have many chapters represented here. We have a handful, but that would be the first question I'd want to ask. I think I'll go through this slide and then come back to these questions after we get through the last slide. There's only one more slide, so we can answer these questions together. Second thing is, if we do this, will you attend? And will you invite your chapter leaders? If we're going to put this on, it's only valuable if people come to it. And thirdly, we're going to put out a pre-survey to find out what is the situation with your chapter in that particular communications topic, especially in terms of advocacy, for example. And so if we send out a survey, will you complete a pre and a post survey for us? And finally, we commit to action. In other words, if you are a chapter that are challenged in any one of those 5 areas, will you commit to building your own action plan? And we will be there to support you in whatever that is. So for example, if you don't have a website today and you walk away from the first session, first webinar, and put together an action plan to create one, we want to be there even if we have to work with you to create that. One of the ideas we have is for those chapters that need, and we have to do a survey to find out what's the need, we would fund the creation of a chapter website template, which then you could use to fill in your information, your pictures, etc., by a way of creating a modern everyday website. So those 4 questions will come back after I get through with this next slide, because the next thing you're going to ask me is, well, when are we going to do this, Jim? And so the plan is we typically are hosting a webinar about 3 weeks after these chapter council meetings. And so if we did it on a quarterly basis, this would take us through each of the seasons out through the winter, this time of 23. And so that's the plan. And so we suggest you stay tuned as far as announcement of a schedule. And now I've got to find out. Oh, there we go. There we're back. And Steve, somehow you're up in another corner. Isn't that interesting? So in maybe by a show of hands, those who are chapter leaders, is this something that would help you and your leaders developing your leadership? Okay, I see Marilyn's got a hand up. John, down in Texas. Bill, you good? Lorenda. All right, David, thank you. And Patty raised her hand. So, all right, I wanted to make sure that there was interest in this before we went ahead with it, because we actually did put out a request for some financial support for this. Not that it needs a lot of money. And we got a very nice grant up front for this. So we have some opportunities here to provide honorariums to get the right subject matter experts, for example. And if we have some follow-on actions, and maybe those subject matter experts could be a consultant to a chapter to do something, we have that opportunity in front of us. And so the second commitment, the second question was, will you and inviting your chapter leaders attend? Marty, Michelle, John, Bill, Sam. All right, good, everybody. Thank you, Patty. And then the third question was, it was completed the survey. The survey was the first one, okay. And so that final one is the whole meat of the hamburger, right? Will you commit to doing whatever it is you come out of it with? So for example, if you have a perfectly good website and you actually have the best practice, I'm looking, for example, for Marty and Michelle to be part of the panel of people that would be offering best practices. And for those chapters that don't have a website or had one and lost it, they would be on the panel also sharing the challenges that they face. And so that's the kind of support we're looking for also. And it's going to be very interesting to put it together. And I'm going to say we will have announcements coming out, at least on the first one, in the next couple of weeks. Gary and I are going to work up the details there, and we will record them. So if we happen to pick a date that you can't make it for any number of reasons, we're not going to try and survey all 16 chapters, for example, and find the best date. We're going to pick a date that seemed reasonable. And if you can't get to it, we'll still record that session so you can share it with your other leaders and also come back to it yourself. If you can't make it, you can see it anyway. All right. Does anybody have any questions about that concept and what we're doing? Michelle?
I just have a comment.
Yeah.
I can't tell you for how many years we really hoped there would be something to help new chapters and add chapters across the country in TRIO. I can't tell you how hard it was for us in the beginning because nobody knew what TRIO was. And when they went online because they had a cousin that lived in another state that needed a transplant, and they went online and they tried to contact the chapter that was supposedly there and never got any information or contact from anyone. I don't want to belabor that, but this is just so fabulous. I mean, you have such a great group here now that's interested and involved. And I think this is such a great next step. And I applaud all of you that have worked on this and put this together. I think this is fabulous.
Thank you, Michelle. And I hope we can use this really to grow the chapter quality, health of the chapter, but also attract new chapters. And maybe we've got to develop something more than Gary is the focus point right today. If somebody's interested in developing a group that will become a chapter, they work with Gary. Maybe we need to broaden that, so we assign a mentor, or rather we call it an advocate today, to help them with those kind of challenges you suggested, Michelle. You've hit the nail on the head. Our focus and our strategic plan going forward really is on chapter health, and this is a major step in that direction, and I appreciate your support, so thank you. So when I call you, Marty or Michelle, whoever, to come on that panel, I assume you're going to say, yes, glad to do it. I mean, how many people have contacted on building websites using on your model anyway, right, Lorenda? All right, anybody else have any questions or comments they would like to add before we move on? Okay.
Jim?
Yes.
Just would add, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, and I think this is such a great start, as Michelle said, but I didn't even see this, master class offering, workshops on public speaking and leadership skills and working with boards, Robert's Rules of Order, fundraising events. I'm just like jotting down a bunch of different ideas, making the most of social media. Once we get our social media up and running, it's going to be so important for everyone to retweet and like and retweet everything we send, so that everything we post gets legs and expands and grows. And that's going to help us, really increase our footprint nationally, internationally, etc. So I just see, this is the beginning of, some, I think it's really a great start, and I agree with the comments. So kudos. I was not involved with it at all.
We're going to involve you in doing this, Kim, because you've been a help already with coming up with a better name for it. So thank you very much. It's exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. And it's going to be a fun year. It's seldom that we have a year banded program for the year. And I think this fits it nicely. So good.